But if you start going to protests, aren't you afraid they're going to institute martial law? This is a question I keep seeing over and over again. And I just got home from the protest in downtown Portland. There were a couple thousand of us there, and there were protests all over the country today, and martial law has not been instituted. So I want to address this specific question and then just talk about this concept in general. Okay, please keep in mind my area of expertise is permaculture, including fruit cultivation and beekeeping and, tending to your soil microbiome. I am not a political scientist. I'm not a professional organizer. I am just an average everyday person who wants to save our democracy. And guess what? That is the majority of who attends protests, events like this. And as more and more and more of us are going to need to turn out in order to defend ourselves from the coup that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are attempting to carry out, more and more everyday Americans are going to have this question, are going to have real rational fears about martial law. Because it's really fucking scary. We have a heavily militarized police force. Add to that the actual military suppressing, oppressing, committing violence against non-violent American citizens, everyday people. That's a really, really scary idea. And so I've gotten a lot of questions about this, and I want to say something, and I hope that people will understand the way that this works. The threat of martial law is a very effective threat. We know that no matter what, that Donald Trump is going to look for a reason to institute martial law. And honestly, I kind of hope he does, because it'll be disastrous in a country as large as and diverse, geographically diverse as ours. Especially when we see more and more military folks reminding everybody that their oath is to the Constitution. Their oath is not to the president. Their oath is to protect America from threats, foreign and domestic. They serve the American people, the Constitution. They do not serve a king named Donald Trump, and they certainly do not serve an unelected foreigner who happens to also be a ketamine addict, Elon Musk. But just the threat of martial law alone is very effective in suppressing us from exercising our constitutional rights. We become so afraid of the what if. Are they going to call in the military? Are they going to institute martial law? That we comply in advance, we obey in advance, which is something that we must not do. We must not cede any of our rights to the tyrannical regime that is attempting to snatch away as much of our freedom as possible and control us through every means that they have, fear and intimidation being two of the big ones. This person says, can you speak to this? What if outside agitators at protests like the one I went to today smear these protests as violent and Trump declares martial law? They did it to the Floyd protests. Yeah, I mean, they might do that. So that's how intimidation works, right? I think that we need to operate with what is available to us and not write stories in our head, not write all of these terrible what ifs, but instead we need to check the facts, right? We can make contingency plans. If they do this, then this is how we will react. But we cannot let threats and we cannot let imaginary narratives or things that happened in the past be an excuse to keep us from exercising our constitutional rights. Freedom is not free. It comes with risks. It comes with risks that tyrannical governments will attempt to harm you for doing what you are legally allowed to do. When I made a video the other day where I was like, I don't think everybody understands what is being asked of us, how much we might have to give in order to save ourselves from tyranny, in order to save ourselves from fascism. This is kind of what I meant. Just because we are interested in protesting nonviolently, that doesn't mean that the government is not going to be violent to us in response. That is a very real risk. But the alternative is one in which state-sanctioned violence against its own citizens is something that America does with impunity whenever it wants, right? We have Marco Rubio saying he will send political dissidents, American citizens, to concentration camps, to prisons in El Salvador. We stand up and we take this risk now, or we risk moving into a state of society that most of us in America, especially white people in America, have never experienced. Right, let's not forget the fact that Black folks are keenly aware of how the state can use violence against them and get away with it, how the state enacts injustice after injustice. It's just that now all of that is going to be applied to those of us who have been very comfortably white for our entire lives. As I've said over and over again, we have to risk it for a biscuit, right? We have to fight. There is a cost to protecting our freedoms, to protecting our Constitution, to protecting our way of life, and arguably maybe creating a better one. But this is where I really, really want you to hear me. If the threat of martial law is enough to keep you from exercising your rights, then we already have martial law in the United States. They don't actually have to roll out the troops. If the threat gets you to comply, if you are afraid of martial law such that you choose not to exercise your rights in a situation where your life and your liberty are on the line, then we already have martial law. I think I said it in another video, maybe I posted it on Blue Sky instead, but the fact that our elected representatives in Congress turned up to the Department of Education seeking to gain access to a building they had a legal right to enter while they were doing the business of the American people, and they were stopped by some armed dudes. I don't know who those guys were. I don't know if they were law enforcement, if they were Trump's private band of Proud Boy paramilitary. I don't know who those guys were. But the fact that our elected officials were met with armed resistance and could not enter a building they had a legal right to access because a flank of guns was in their way, we already have martial law in the United States. That was martial law on full display on the national news. The threat of martial law cannot be something that we allow to let us comply in advance and to just freely hand over the rest of our liberty to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I know it's really scary. I don't want to be hurt. I had friends in the 2020 protests that were injured by the police. Everybody in Portland knows what the cops are like here. I had the Proud Boys rioting on my streets a couple of years ago, and the cops were all buddy-buddy with them and let them do it. I know it's really scary to think about the fact that we are facing a situation. Do you not understand? We are facing a situation where our leaders, who are supposed to protect us and protect and preserve our liberty, our freedoms, that they are wanting to use our own military, our neighbors, our family, our friends in the military to control and oppress us and strip us of our rights. They are using the threat, the fear, the intimidation of our own military who have sworn an oath to protect us, the American people, from threats foreign and domestic. They are using our military as a threat against us, the citizens of this nation. And I know that that's horrifying, that this is where we are in American history. And I don't want to minimize how scary that is for anybody, but I just want folks to understand that that cannot be a reason for us to buckle and bend the knee and roll over and give over everything that we have, give over the rights, the well-being, the lives of people in our communities and abroad for this fascist regime. Like, this cannot be a reason that we lay down. So I hope that helped answer your question. I'm sorry this was such a long video, but I've gotten so many comments like this. These are really scary times. This is what Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all of the maggots have done to us. Everyone in Congress who supports this stuff, their day will come. Their day in court will come, I hope. This is what they have done to us. They have instilled fear. They have stolen so much from us. So we cannot let the threat of them using our neighbors, our family, our military against us as a way to strip us of what we have left. We must not comply in advance. We must resist for the sake of our democracy.